To say thank you for that. I don't know when you saw that email.
I did.
Thank you.
You.
I've referred it to some other people.
Thank you. May 6th, 2025. It is now 7:07 p.m. And we're going to call the annual town meeting to order. The first order David Waters, a longtime moderator for the town, and I will move him and ask for a second. Second has been received. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, the nomination is closed. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. It passes. So David, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you, Tony. Hello, fellow residents. My name is David Waters. I will be pleased to be your moderator this evening for this, the annual town meeting of the town of Wilton 2026. And as mandated by the charter, I, as the moderator, am the one that appoints the parliamentarian. And I hereby appoint Town Council Ira Bloom to act as that. Next, I will call on Lori Kabak, our town clerk, for the reading of the call.
Of the town of Wilton and all others entitled to vote at a meeting of the town meeting pursuant to general statutes are hereby notified that the annual town 6, 2025 at 7:00 p.m. to consider and act upon the following matters. Submitted by the Board of Finance for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2025, and to make specific appropriations adopted by unanimous vote on April 1st and April 2nd and April 7th. The following have been endorsed by the Board of Selectmen. Construction and installation of the high school library roof replacement and authorizing the issuance of 2 million bonds of the town to meet said appropriation and 2, resolution appropriating $1,646,314 for the planning, design, and construction of improved and authorizing the issuance of 1,646,314 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. $78 for the planning, design, and acquisition and installation of the Cider Mill School water chiller replacement, and authorizing the issuance of 1,547,678 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. 4, resolution appropriating $1,286,618 for the planning, design, equipment, and construction of historic range 286,618 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. 5, resolution appropriating $725,000 for the planning, design, walks and parking areas, and authorizing the issuance of 725,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. 6, resolution appropriating $700,000 for the planning, design, and road restoration, and authorizing pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. 7, resolution appropriating $700,000 for the planning, design, acquisition, and installation of a turf field replacement at Memorial Stadium, and authorizing the issuance of 700,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation, and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. For the planning, design, acquisition, installation of the Middlebrook School exhaust fan replacement and authorizing the issuance of 373,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. Of a large dump truck and 2 sanders and 2 plow apparatus and authorizing the issuance of 330,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. 10, resolution appropriating 200 HVAC system replacement and authorizing the issuance of 250,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation and pending the issuance thereof, the making of temporary borrowings for such purpose. Approved by the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Lori. I now call on Town Council Ira Bloom for the first procedural resolution.
Good evening, everybody. 4 procedural rules that will govern how we will operate this evening. Rules of order. Roberts, by the way, is Henry Martin Roberts, who was a civil engineer in the 1800s, Army engineer in the 1800s. The second procedural rule that we will adopt, get 3 minutes to speak on any particular topic, except when we read one bonding resolution. The speaker will have up to a total, can't speak for 5.5 minutes on one bonding resolution and 30 seconds on the other. 2 of those bonding resolutions. So the third procedural resolution is something that we call calling the question. So what that means basically is that at some point in the meeting, somebody might be recognized and wish to limit the debate or cut off the debate, so they would rise and make a motion to call the question. Typically under Roberts, that's not debatable. There'd be an immediate vote to see if we cut off all further debate. We are proposing to have a variation of that. Discretion to look around, and he'll ask probably who else would like to speak, and he might see a few hands. People have had a chance to speak. We do urge everybody to not prematurely call the question so that everybody has a chance to. And then we have the last rule that we. What that means basically is that if someone, again, gets up, wants to make a particular motion to cut a budget, then you can make a proposal. I wish to cut a certain budget. The moderator will do, using his discretion, he will say, all right, are there any other cuts to that particular budget? What we'll do under this rule is discuss both and then vote, starting with passes, we're done on that particular line. If it doesn't pass, filling in the blanks. So those are the 4 procedural rules and filling in the blanks. So at this point, I would ask, is there a motion that we adopt all 4 rules? Aye? Aye. Okay, any opposed? All right, thank you. Then we will adopt those rules for tonight, and that'll govern how we will go on here. All right, a few additional rules here. Let me just outline these things. These are items that the town meeting may not do. You may not appropriate more money than the Board of Finance has recommended for a particular line item. You may not appropriate money for any purpose not recommended by the Board of Finance and represented by a line item. You may not reduce any line item below the town's legal obligation. Create an increase in another line. So those are the things you cannot do. I'll tell you a few things you can do. You can reduce particular line items. Go through that. But, oops, sorry. Thank you. But you can, and you also may reduce the Board of Education budget, but only the bottom line, not line by line. You can reduce the debt service appropriation, but not below any legal obligations. Quickly, let me just go through a few voting procedures. I think there'll be more. That upon completion of reasonable discussion of the budget, that a machine vote will take place. So you will have the opportunity, if you choose to do so, in the lobby of the center here tonight, and I believe they stay open. You will have an opportunity to vote also here at the Clune Center in the lobby on Saturday, this Saturday, May 10th, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. There are also absentee ballots which are available for you. When you vote, when you go out to vote today or Saturday, each voter will have the following choices. A, too high, or C, you can reject the budget because it is too low. And whether it's rejected for being too high or rejected for being too low, and if there's at least 15% of the electors, then that budget will be processed in the charter for what happens next. We'll cover that if we have to at some later. When we get to the bonding, at that point there will be adequate time for discussion, but there'll be the machine vote, and you'll have an opportunity to vote on those bonding resolutions. So that
A few procedural comments. For those that are not familiar with the town charter or the annual town meeting or Robert's rules, the charter is our governing document. It is the supreme document. And anything that is not Robert's rules and the procedural resolutions that we adopted this evening. When you wish to speak at the meeting, please come to one of the microphones there. And we will proceed in order, alternating between the microphones. Only voting members of the annual town meeting are glad to see you, but you are not allowed to participate. Each person, when you come to the microphone to speak, Please give your name and street address. Each person will be granted, as we know from the procedural resolution, 3 minutes per question with the limits on bonding as Ira has explained. The timing on that will be seconds before the end of your 3-minute period, so that way we can advise you to finish your comments and we will move on. Do not count towards the 3-minute time limit within reason, but the answers do. To me as the moderator, or to the board members, Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, but not to other assembly members. People have had an opportunity to speak once, and no person is permitted to speak more often than twice. And please limit your remarks. Please respect the Assembly, its rules, and each and every member. Please tie your remarks to the budget, bond, or pending question. I know that there's a lot of times that people have concerns about real estate. Those are important questions, but they are not appropriate here this evening that are before us. Their members, their motives, their character is an unpaid volunteer and a taxpayer, and doing what they believe. But they deserve your respect and thanks for their service to our community. Guests should be behind the aisle that is in the back there. Please refrain from any cheering, clapping, or other forms of participation, or call you out of order. Your comment or move on to other. Amendment to the pending. Each amendment will be considered separately, sequentially, and put to a vote before moving on to other business. The only exception to that is the filling the blanks procedures for specific budget items. Any member can ask questions about procedure or pending questions, and members can appeal most of the rulings that I make, with the exception of those relating to decorum, by vote. Voting will occur tonight in a couple of different ways. We've already done it by voice. You also should have received, those that are members of the annual town meeting, you should have this evening. Also permitted is voting by division, which is where people stand up. And also, there is a provision for secret ballots. If anyone wished to require that, it would be by a separate motion. Such a motion made and passed, there are other procedures that we would then go through, which I would explain at that point. If anyone is missing your pretty pink card, in the event that there is a tie vote on anything, there is no majority, and therefore the motion. Both I and the parliamentarian will explain any other applicable rules or procedures as needed in decisions. There are 2 topics tonight. One is the budget, the other are the 10 bonding requests. Please stay for all of them. Are there any questions? Hearing Chairman of the Board of Finance for his remarks on the fiscal year 2026 budget and the mill rate.
It's good to see everybody. I have the privilege of being the chair of the board. On the far side of the stage there, on the far right, we have Prasad Iyer and Tim Birch couldn't make with us tonight, but they were instrumental in all the numbers that we'll be discussing tonight. I'd also like to start by thanking our IT department who spent many hours, if not days and weeks, preparing all of this. I'd like to thank Wilton High School as well for their partnership and their camaraderie throughout this budget season. And last, we will be discussing tonight, these tax dollars. This is all your money. Now, it is a Tuesday night, it's 7:30, there's a lot of other things we could be doing. Before we begin, to provide some context, so Ruth, the chair of the Board of Ed, and Tony, the first selectwoman, they will go through the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education budgets. My goal here tonight is to provide a framework and a context to understand how those budgets tie together into the mill rate and into the taxes, which all slide, this is the key highlights. This is the summary of your tax. $97 million, which is a $3.7 million and 4% increase over last year. The Board of Selectmen budget is recommended at $37.1 million, a 1. Additionally, typically the Board of Finance recommends a reserve of 1% of our operating budget for reserves. Let's think of this as your rainy day fund. This year, we recommended an additional $375,000 for improvements to our town facilities and our schools. Increasing 3.9%. When you combine all of that with the grand list, which we'll talk about in a second, you get a mill rate of 24.4054, which is a Additionally, our country in May of 2024, and we will hear from them again, I believe, in 2 or 3 weeks, and anticipate some good news on that as well. So this very beautiful slide is a summary of the mill rate model, which the Board of Finance looks at. Top part, this is the total operating requirements. These are the different budgets which compose our expenses. So as I mentioned, the Board of Education is million, and the reserves, which again includes that 375 seniors. And then you take away our non-property tax revenue. So these are things like conveyance taxes, building permits, fees. You get so the grand list this year grew, and it grew by a lot. It grew by $75.4 million, which is a 1.3% increase over last year. When you combine that with our property tax needs, 1.93% increase over last year. So a question that I get fairly frequently is, how do we pay for all these expenses? What are in those expenses and how do we pay for it? So let's break it down. On the left side, these are our sources of revenue. This is how we pay for it all. Property owners. We pay 72% of the budget. Second, then you have the motor vehicle ground list, all our cars. Then you have other ground lists. These are smaller items like personal property. Property tax revenue I mentioned for the conveyance taxes, the building permits, the fees. Now on the right side, 66% is the Board of Education. A quarter of 25% is the Board of Selectmen. Our debt service is practice is to keep that below 10%. So it's 7%, 1% of the budget, and our tax relief is also 1%. Now, another common question I get asked is, why are taxes going? This year's increase, which is $5.5 million, the Board of Ed accounts for 68%, or $3.7 million. The Board of Selectmen accounts for $1,000, or 8%. Now, how are we going to pay for it? So let's look at the beautiful orange chart increase in our non-property tax revenue. So we are forecasting an increase in the revenue we bring in other than our taxpayers. Now that middle bar, we have a new $1.8 million in taxes coming through. Without that grand list growth, offsetting your taxes, and that's 1.8 million or 33% of it. And the biggest portion is coming from all of us, $2.6 million. So on this slide, I just wanted to show some historical context for what our mill rate has been. So as I mentioned, this year's mill rate is 24.4054. That's 1.9225. That is due to the revaluation, which we all experienced, and I'm sure we all remember last year. Right, but what does that actually mean? How do you calculate your taxes? In most years, including this year, now, it's not necessarily true for everybody. If you've done any sort of improvement or demolition at your home, it might be a little bit different, but for the vast majority of Wilton's residential taxpayers. But how would you calculate your taxes just based on the mill rate? So we start with the mill rate, which our recommendation is 24.4054. You multiply that by your home assessment, which you can look up on equality evaluation services. And then you get your taxes, which in this example is $24,405.40. So in summary, the Board of Finance has unanimously, with a 6-0 vote, voted $835,795. We voted to recommend a mill rate levy in fiscal year 26 of $140,012,722 and a fiscal. Now, additionally, part of our charter responsibilities is to provide an opinion on whether or not to endorse certain bonding referendums. There were 10 that came before us, and the Board of Finance. Wilton High School Library roof, $1,647,678 for a chiller at Cider Mill, $725,000 for the artificial turf field, $373,000 for Middlebrooks exhaust stands, $333,000 for the Department of Public Works snow truck, and $250,000 for an HVAC system.
Thank you, Matt. At this point, I would call on our first Selectwoman, Tony Boucher, for her remarks on the Board of Selectmen budget.
It's wonderful to see all of you here participating in this very important, special town meeting form of government that we're lucky to have in Wilton, where every one of you get to decide our next budget. The 2026 budget for the town of Wilton. When we started this year's budget process, we were faced with some very strong headwinds. A sizable budget increase from last year's, even before we presented the 2026 budget to the Board of Selectmen, due to unexpected higher than normal forecasted increases in the state's health care plan that our town employees are covered under, and the depletion of a very sizable reserve previously used to reduce budget increases that set us back several hundred thousands of dollars. We also have some various labor contracts yet to be completed that will affect every salary and benefit line. The budget presented to you tonight is the result of some very hard work by all members of the Board of Selectmen. Ross Tartell and Baz Nabulski. I thank them for their very dedicated service. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the town to thank him for his outstanding, dedicated service to our town. For most of his over 30 years here, Baz Board of Selectmen, without partisanship or rancor, always listening, arrived at, while providing guidance with care, compassion, and respect. Of collaboration. I say this sincerely, that we all appreciate all our meetings without fail while balancing his many professional and personal responsibilities. Bass, I say to you, your warm and helpful partnership on the board. Again, Wilton thanks you and wishes you and your family the very best that life truly. The budget has also been developed and supported by our CFO, Dawn Norton, the Finance Department, the town's department heads, and their staffs. We very much appreciate their careful and thorough review and their ongoing efforts to control the growth of expenses while being requirements or state mandates. Under extreme constraints, the Board of Selectmen was able to include in this budget a 3% in the library's budget to meet the growing demand and the Wilton Fire Department for the first time in over 20 years. Some may wonder why we need to augment the answer lies in the rapid changes Wilton has experienced since the pandemic, which is local private sector hiring. While controlling expansion and diversification experience strain. Emergency services must keep pace with the shifting of electronics and chemicals to more congested roads and to a rise in emergency calls that is great. Managing these changing conditions is of utmost importance to town leaders who consider decided that investing in Wilton's fire department was a safeguard that could no longer wait. And we're lucky to have our fire chief with us seamlessly together, as well as CERT. We are very well served. It was a good example was when they came to the rescue when our football field was completely flooded out, had much time and work. And again, the resulting town budget you're being asked to vote on is, as you just heard from our Board of Finance, $37,130,000. And as, again, as Matt Raimondi just told us, the Wilton's robust grand list of over 94.4 will result in a 1.93 tax levy of our town. Wilton, where you all belong. Our values and protects its rich colonial history and nationally ranked educational system while moving it forward with modern amenities and infrastructure that will continue to draw and retain residents, businesses, and we're working to keep it that way. Some of our highlights. It's not just the Board of Education that has lots to tout. We want to make sure that the town and that you also recognize that our community also has a lot of wonderful things to offer, and why our grand list is growing so incredibly good. Wilton has earned an A+ for public schools and family life. It's ranked 13 in Nietzsche's 2025 Best Places to Live in Connecticut. That's why I say that they're our #1 asset, our schools. And you'll learn later also ASML, our #1 business. We have some of the most talented workforce in the world, as I just mentioned. ASML, with its 3,200 employees, represent 90% of the worldwide manufacture of microchip making machines. That's extraordinary. Think of us. We're a little under 19,000 residents, and yet one business, our #1 taxpayer, has over 3,200 employees. By the way, they come in and out of our town in 3 shifts every day. Excess fund balance policy that was enacted last year, ASML and grand list growth, strong management team, inter-board collaboration, overfunded pension funds, by the way, anywhere from 108, and we even have one small one that's at 155% funded. That equals to one of the lowest borrowing costs available. And just as an example, last year we went out for a very small bond sale, just small, $3 million, and it was predicted we would get 2 or 3 bidders. Guess what? We got 8, which meant we got the very lowest borrowing price there was available. Matt Raimondi just showed you in his calculation for the mill rate. Nod Hill has been deemed one of the top 10 best roads in the United States. The value of our properties have gone up 60% in the last 5 years. Our Norwalk River Valley Trail provides some outstanding recreational opportunities. Trackside Teen Center provides unique youth support and programming and is one of the very best that exists in Connecticut. I know that from representing global visibility to our town. And Ambler Farm just received last year $330,000 from an ASML grant for recognizing its student programs and scholarships, and also is a favorite of what makes Wilton so incredibly special. Our town goals for the next year, and has been for the previous year as well. Number 1, as I just mentioned, it is school security. We strive to review security procedures continuously, our technology and infrastructure needs as well, and provide our departments of public safety and first responders with adequate to continue to provide high quality services that Wilton residents and businesses expect, and hopefully at the lowest possible cost. We also want to provide you with responsible budgets and bonding projects that protect the taxpayers' investments in school and town facilities and provide adequate funding and staff for maintenance and repairs. For those that are new to Wilton, just know that the Board of Selectmen is actually responsible for all buildings in town, and that's why we present you with a bond list every year. And finally, we do want to provide adequate municipal office space to address our workplace needs, our crumbling infrastructure, and overcrowding. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And as a result of a number of projects that we have, we need to provide oversight to complete building projects on time and within budget. Always a challenge. And additionally, we will continue to pursue grant opportunities and other initiatives to reduce the cost of the taxpayers' share as the funding of this infrastructure. We have been in the process of modernizing our town government functions and also to provide better custody on making sure we have more online processes, including permitting in our building office. We also, as part of our function, we have a social services department that aids those in need and enhance recreational cultural experiences, again, while trying to stay within budget. We've already mentioned the AAA rating so that we receive the best possible rates. And we just, by the way, for your information, we had our annual Moody's rating call. It was an hour and a half, and it was extensive. And I will tell you that the response has been very good, and we hope to share we'll be able to put out, hopefully, some good news at that time. This budget that you're looking at is tight, and it flat funds most line items during a very inflationary period of time when we're experiencing a lot of rapid growth. To achieve the guidance number, it was suggested not increasing funding for some volunteer ambulance service and other important line items. The budget includes a request from the Wilton Fire Department, as I just mentioned, to add 2 firefighter positions to respond to the increasing calls for service and add to public safety. And after several rounds of reductions, the Board of Selectmen even added a 3% increase for the Wilton Library to maintain its excellent programming. And just to reiterate, I'm not going to go through all of this with you, but to reiterate, the growth has really caused us to have to revisit the staffing that we have, and we are pleased that we're able to present to you a budget that does include these, and it also moves forward a lot of the critical infrastructure needs that was identified by the town and schools facility studies that was had established, which is the town and schools needs assessment priority committee that is helping us bring a lot of these items you the breakdown of the budget, as was outlined as well from the Board of Finance, an operating percent, given all the constraints we talked about, but a reduction in our operating capital budget at 3.65%. Here are the important items that are included. Again, the firefighters, the Library Association, school and public health nurses, our shared paramedic services, Wilton Volunteer Ambulance, of our town. Ambler Farm operations at $44,000, police and fire are the major points. Factors that have affected this budget. Again, this has been on the radar here in Wilton for some time. The need to address these deaths and needing to spend nearly $140 million, possibly. As you know, we have our IT department in a closet, and so we've spaced them out over 15 years. So each year later on. And of course, we have staff increases driven by and when there is so much going on, that one building inspector has been augmented by part-time people as well. Okay, what is another significant factor that is affecting this budget? At the cost side to all of these developments. You can see here what are the significant and those that are going to be completed or in process as now. 911 apartment units, and if they're one or two beds, the population of our town. And some of the other things that affected this budget was truly that sharp increase in health insurance happening all over the place. But we started with a forecast of 7% when we started building this budget. The state gave us those guidelines, and then before we knew it, it was hiked to 13%. And it said, no, it'll be closer to 10.9 or 11%. We do have often had an issue with regards to filling a lot of important positions. One of them was in finance and accounting. The town had to go about employing some new recruiting agencies and other methods to attract talent. It is a statewide issue. Our neighboring towns are experiencing the same thing. So a really great profession for any of your children or students would be going into the accounting profession, because there really are scarcity in that marketplace. I'm lucky to report that just in the last couple of weeks, we have had 2 new hires. One started last week. That was a senior accountant, and we will have one starting on May 21st that's going to be a payroll clerk. So what was what was the reason for the great growth in our grand list? Quite frankly, it's really interesting that it was the demand for Wilton houses, coupled with a scarcity of homes for sale, leading to a substantial increase in home values in the last 5 years. This is organic growth. It is not a growth by doing a revaluation. This is new homes, new home development, and also renovations in various homes. And we can't ignore the fact that we had strong growth in personal property due to additions of industrial equipment by Eversource and ASML. Much of the machinery and the property there is in the hundreds of millions of dollars. The one negative was that vehicle values declined slightly as the Connecticut legislature enacted new assessment policies based on the original list price of each vehicle to eliminate the wide fluctuations in the value of used car market that happened quite a bit during COVID. So here's a chart on dollars. You can see that produced a great outcome for our Board of Finance and for the rest of the town, and certainly for the taxpayer. Rate of 1.93. From 2025 and now 2026. And you can see the growth, and we're at an all-time high, as you can see by this chart. And the impact that we had with the reval last year, and then a nice little growth from this year as well. 10 taxpayers. As you can see, ASML is a gift to our town. It's our electric company, and then you can see the others, which are significantly less than PDF that was provided. I'm sorry about that, but it's available to you online if you'd like to take a closer look. So here's the sign on the town's website where you can see the significant increases or decreases that we had. You can see how we achieved a 3.65% budget. Contributions that we just talked about, which has been a real positive and really helps us when we have those rating calls from Moody's. We are, all of them in fact. And finally, some of the other costs that we are looking at, you can tell that it's all these contract negotiations are up this year. One of them that has not been settled from last year is very close to being resolved. Even though it's going to binding arbitration, we believe very strongly that it will not go to binding arbitration, it will be resolved shortly. And also, again, what are our risks going forward? There they are. Litigation, disasters. We got really surprised by that flood back in August of 2024. And we're in the process of finalizing our applications to space for employees. We just don't have any place to put them right now. There are legislative factors, as always, an expansion of 8-30G, the potential for reduction in state educational cost sharing. This year, I think we're going to be okay, but you never know. Every legislative session produces municipalities, and the potential for inflation, supply chain issues, tariffs, and so on. That completes my presentation to you on the budget.
Call on Ruth DeLuca, the chairman of the Board of Education.
Good evening. Recently, I took my children to... Tonight, I am reminded of Jefferson's understanding that in education and John Adams' belief that the whole people must take upon themselves the education of the whole people and must be willing to bear the expenses of it. Tonight, as we gather together in the deeply democratic practice of settling tax rates at the ballot box, it is my honor as chair of the Board of Education budget to the Wilton Annual Town Meeting. I'd like to acknowledge and thank Superintendent Smith and his into the budget. A special thank you to Marianne Salvato and Lila Rudinas in the BOE. Countless hours of work behind the numbers and this presentation. I'd like to recognize and thank my fellow board members, Nicola Davies, Lori Bufano, to Wilton's commitment to education in service of a better world. On behalf of the board, I'd also like to extend our appreciation to the Board of Finance and Chair Matt Raimondi for their continued partnership and collaboration. Over the last several years, the board has put in substantial effort to better forecast our finance and view the Wilton community. I believe that effort, the BOF guidance setting process was led by BOE forecasting and commitments. Tonight, the BOE presents a budget that is of 4%. This budget was unanimously adopted by the Board of Education. Meeting the 4% BOF guidance was not easy. Difficult choices were made. Despite recent advance our education program in pursuit of excellence while providing great value for our public schools is to inspire and prepare all students to contribute meaningfully to a globally interdependent society. Our students actively pursue their goals and aspirations to be productive. The portrait of a graduate has now evolved into the vision of a learner. Lifelong journey, it more accurately recognizes complexity must be grounded in today and also prepare our children to meet traits that will enable our children to productively struggle and succeed in a volatile, uncertain, contemporary multiliterate scholars, self-navigating expert learners, creative entrepreneurial designers. Evidence of our commitment in both systemic and student achievement. The Wilton Public Schools had the second highest Connecticut Accountability Index score. Wilton High School and Middlebrook each had the highest index scores for comprehensive high schools and middle schools. And for the second time in a row, through 5 schools in the state. According to U.S. News and World Report, Wilton High School middle schools and first for math. Niche ranks Wilton. Next generation science exam, 11th grade was first in the state and 8th grade was second. Made the 2024 AP honor roll. 330 students took exams taken. Close to 97% of students scored a 3 or higher, with 4.27 being the average AP exam score. 300 in a row, the NAB Foundation named Wilton the best community for music. The high school theater The show was thoroughly enjoyed by a sold-out audience. Before, we had 9 Division I athletes, 2 Division II athletes, 1 athletes, and committed 9 Division III students were all state athletes. Wilton was recently recognized among approximately the lowest chronic absenteeism rate in the state. On the Connecticut highest score in English and the 3rd highest score in math. Across the 4 schools and debate meets. Members of the class of 2025 have already accepted Cornell, Dartmouth, Harvard, Princeton, Emory, Boston College, Middlebury, Tufts, Boston. This fall, the board settled on a set of budget goals, priorities, and assumptions. Narrowing the achievement gap and strengthening community wellness and belonging, maintaining current class size and current mental health, supporting the continued implementation of the vision of a learner, funding STEM initiatives and continued development of rigorous academic opportunities, including new course proposals such as addressing in-district special education transportation costs and needs, and supporting the facilities improvement plan. State legal goal mandates, honoring collective bargaining agreements. Teacher projected salaries will increase on average 4%. Administration by 2.6%. Utilities will increase by an average of 3.5%. Medical insurance and costs will increase by about 6%. For additional professional development, textbook and digital resource expenses with reading and ELA curriculum shifts. It was with these goals, priorities, and assumptions that the board embarked on an open and data-driven budget process. Initial year drivers of salaries, benefits, and other fixed costs, the board did express concern that the BOF guidance of 4% might not be achievable, despite our deep hourly from property revaluations. It was important to the board and the district to try to find a way to navigate through the budget in a manner that just that. The budget before you tonight was recommended by the superintendent and unanimously passed by the Board of Education and unanimously recommended to the annual town meeting by the Board of Finance. The budget before you tonight of delivering a world-class pre-K through 22 education program. The budget before you tonight delivers excellence at great value. This budget request represents a year-over-year increase of 4% at $3.7 million. The vast majority of our budget supports staff. Salaries account for 65% of the budget at about $63 million and then of the budget and total a little over $77 million. The year-over-year difference in the salary line is about $2.5 million. The year-over-year difference in the benefits line 1.5% at about $3.5 million. The next largest components of the budget is of about $450,000. Purchase services at 3% for a little over $3 million, with a year-over-year difference of about negative $490,000. Utilities at 2% for about $1.6 million, with a year-over-year difference of about negative $107,000. Year-over-year difference of about $170,000. Property services at 1% for about $1.1 million, with a year for about $700,000, with a year-over-year difference of about $40,000. This year's budget changes reflect our priorities by providing additional staff and making targeted choices to reduce certain non-staff line items. Items new to this year's budget are Driscoll and Cider Mill, restoring the District Director of Digital Technology to full-time, increasing the stipend of the Wilton High School SAT coordinator, and covering the partial salary of a Miller Driscoll Cider Mill social worker from a closing ARPA grant, for a total of about $365,000. Items in this year's budget added in fiscal 25 and carrying over are covering parts of the salaries of a Cider Mill reading interventionist and SRBI coordinator, previously covered under Title I grants, moving the Safe Climate coordinator to the administrative level, a SPED paraeducator, and 2 stipends for assistant athletic director and an SEL team leader. This is for a total of $230,000. Reductions to offset the new items amount to about $315,000 and were taken from conferences, library books, digital resources, paraprofessionals, general supplies, and security measures covered by a grant. Staffing requests in this budget, not in this budget, total a little over $660 for Cider Mill Strings, 0.20 FTE for Cider Mill Health and Wellness, 0.10 FTE for clerical staff at the Middlebrook LLC, 0.10 FTE for maintenance, 1.0 FTE for Middlebrook Humanities Coach, 1.0 FTE for a Cider Mill SPED teacher, 1.0 FTE for our high school dean, 1.0 FTE for a Miller Driscoll paraprofessional, and this budget also supports strategic investments that drive both improved education outcomes and temper rising costs. We continue to support special education programs, keep Wilton students in the community, and drive student success and well-being. Thinking classrooms and task design. We continue to maintain current class size and revise schedules to maximize staffing efficiencies and instructional time. We continue to embed the accelerated learning framework and the vision of a learner. We continue to fund staff. We continue to support the illustrative math program K through 8, contributing to Middlebrook having the #1 math program in the state. We lease our technology, purchased a van to minimize the cost of inter-district transportation, and signed a lease in downtown Wilton to house the Community Steps program. Looking over a 10-year time horizon, our average rate of year-over-year increase is 1.75%. Darien, Westport, Ridgefield, New Canaan, and Weston. In previous years, Wilton sat in the middle to the low. Wilton has the lowest per pupil cost in our district reference group. EdSite data, which lags the year behind, has Wilton enrollment stands at 3,796, including pre-K, Genesis, Community Steps, and outplacements. This keeps enrollment almost flat, with a projected increase and Cider Mill, and decreases at Middlebrook. By the Board of Education. This budget meets the Board of Finance guidance and was responsible and educationally thoughtful. It respects the tax environment and advances our education commitments. For several years now, I have been starting the school year by greeting kindergartners off the bus and ending the community to support the education and well-being of all our children. This budget reinforces and supports our learning community. It is a monetary expression of our values. Caregivers, and all the members of our Wilton community. This budget delivers excellence for our great value. This budget.
Apparently there is a car that is, so if that's you, your car is running. Thank you, Ruth. At this point, I call on Matt Raimondi, Chairman of the Board of Finance, for
Thank you. Good to see everyone again. All right. For expenditures amounting to $145,835,795 for fiscal year 2026, and levy a tax of 24.4054 mils that is payable 1/2 on July 1st, 2025, and 1/2 on January 1st, 2026, on July 1st, 2025. Taxes on automobiles shall be payable in one installment on July 1st, 2025. Thank you.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All right. Thank you for all of your patience in all of this. It is now time for you to comment. Again, I would remind you that you have 3 minutes per speaker, and please clearly state your name and street address at the microphones before you begin your comments. Yes.
Deborah McFadden, 109 Westport Road.
Thank you to all who prepared this budget. I appreciate all the work that you put into it. I support this budget. I support the schools. I support the town. I particularly support those who work in the schools, who work in the town. We have really extraordinary employees who support us in our community. I think that Wilton can do a better job in being a partner in our public-private partnerships. We have many of them, the library, NRVT, Trackside, I could go on and on, we have many, but I think that we need to step up and be a better partner. I think we need to continue to seek opportunities for reducing the budget through grants and regionalism. I think there is an importance of maintaining our AAA bond rating and the required increase in reserves that they are seeking. I recommend a sinking fund for our items such as the turf field, and I recommend more clarity on what is going to happen with our infrastructure needs, which are continually growing. Our town and school employees and students deserve adequate facilities in which Station 2 is needed. I support the increase in the fire employees staffing. With that increase in the height of the structures that we have been approving through planning and zoning, not only we have the fire employees, but they get the training and the equipment needed to reach 4 and 5 stories. I also think we need an increase in our building department for the increased work. Please address more and diverse housing in the town of Wilton. There are many of us who are aging who would like to stay, but we're ready to get rid of our large acreage, big houses, and we want to stay in the community. I really applaud the Wilton schools and all the many accomplishments that our students have achieved, and I support the Board of Selectmen budget, I support the Board of Ed budget, I support this budget, and I urge all those present and those who will yet vote, please support this budget.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to the budget? If so, please come down to the microphones.
Hi, my name is Candace Cole. I live at 14 Old Belden. Reminded us all that the wonderful things Wilton has to offer. You know that she left out the true reason for our budget increase and now indefinitely place to live when you will not be able to find parking due to planning and zoning idea of parking once and walking. You think our town will be able to, will be a destination to others after they walk down our town center?
I'm going to ask you.
All the wonderful things in Wilton, and you're saying that this is what our budget is contributing to, and I am saying that
Please
the
address
negative
yourself.
side, all these 900 apartments are not going to have any effect on our classroom side. How over in 10 years that it's going to be kind of stagnant for our school. If we're hiring more teachers now, and we haven't even built anything, how are we not going to hire more? If you guys are asking 4% now, what happens to do with the budget? Is all this building going on, and we all need to pay attention. Why isn't planning and zoning here? Why isn't this why is the only town meeting the budget? Why can't anyone speak in this town? It makes me feel really frustrated. I can't say anything to this town. Everyone hush hush. Who's getting paid? What is going on? Why can't the residents of Wilton talk?
No, you can continue.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank
You have
you.
your 3 minutes.
Okay. With these apartments, they will bring families. The costs, traffic, congestion, frustration when you can't find parking, most of all these major safety issues. Wilton will have more of a benefit the residents of the Wilton, of our quiet Wilton town, which is basically a village. With more children coming in, teachers, bigger schools, more buses, insurance, wear and tear on the roads, amenities, public services. These need, we've hired more teachers and 2 new firefighters. We haven't even started building already, we are spending more employees. And instead of building a garage across the street, we allowed another apartment building, GM Electric. They left. You know what happened to those apartment buildings? They all become public, public housing. So what do you apartments for rental? If there was a demand for rental apartments.
Time. Thank you very much.
Hudspeth, 6 Glen Hill Road. I rise in support of the budget and rise especially to commend the 3 town boards that are reflected up here for their work together to get a really good result for our town. These are difficult times to work in financially. They're very challenging times all around. But to be able to bring our town budget in the way you have, and to do it so effectively working together, that's a tremendous compliment to all of you. You should be very proud of that, and we're appreciative of it that you do that. I would be remiss in standing up here if I didn't also thank all our town workers who've done so much to keep things going in often very difficult working circumstances. And I would like to speak especially to our teachers and school administrators. The results that Ruth DeLuca put up there on the screen are absolutely extraordinary. And they're a product of certainly excellent students, but also extraordinary teachers and administrators who facilitate those students in their learning and give them what our town has as its most important responsibility, which is to see that the young people of our town get the foundation they need to be productive, supportive members of the community at large and of our nation as a whole. And our schools are succeeding in doing that in enormous ways. This budget needs our support, deserves our support, and is beautifully framed. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes.
Good evening. David McCabe, 1 Brenner Road. I'm here to support the men and women of Wilton Local 2233. And may I speak briefly about the... First, I want to thank the Wilton FD, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and First Selectman Tony shows real leadership and a commitment to public safety. I also want to thank the residents. As someone who has worked in this profession for 28 years, I can tell you having a well-staffed fire department isn't when there's a medical crisis, response times matter. And the ability to respond quickly and effectively depends on. Wilton Fire Department has been doing more with less for too long. That's no longer sustainable for the safety of the public and for the health and well-being of the firefighters themselves. Adding these 2 positions others, and I want to ensure that they can do their job safely and effectively. And remember, these firefighters just aren't employees of the town. They're your neighbors, your co supported with the resources they need. So again, thank you for your leadership, your support, and for prioritizing public. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, this is Shane Wong from 103 Scribner Hill Road. Thank you all for putting forward the budget and sharing with us. It's just maybe in the context of budgeting forward, if there's a way for you to share with us what you guys did with last year's budget improvement, because I think there were certain items that you particularly asked for, including I think with the town hall pillars and like improving the heating system and all that stuff. I just think it'd be helpful for folks in the town to understand, like, for the stuff that you wanted people to support, what happened to those particular items and what the effectiveness and results were.
Could you repeat exactly what it is that you were asking for? I know it was
Just a look back, right? So we have a look forward of like, there's a budget we want to approve, right? More spending. A look back of last year, we approved a certain amount of budget. There were certain items that the budget was there to support for, or the increase of budget was there to support for, whether it's new hiring of police staff, whatever it is. It would be just good to have a look back and say, you guys approved the budget increase of X percent. We used the money, we went out and hired people, did this and that. It would be just helpful to know that.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, is it that you want to know at ending date? We are very close to being on budget. We have actually asked all of the departments to see where they are. Our CFO is keeping track of that. Now that we're very close to being budget, we will not be over budget. We will be making budget. We always hope to have a little extra, if we can, a surplus. But we were very tight last year. We're going to be even tighter in this coming year. $400 or $500 items. So there's very little cushion that might have existed.
Yes.
Lindsay McKay, 87 Old Kings Highway. I would like to say thank you to everyone and that I am in full support of the school budget, especially as it pertains to the new reading and writing program, EL Education, that starting this fall will be in full implementation for all of kindergarten through 5th grade. Last year, I spoke at this event with very different remarks. And as a proud Wilton grad myself, I am very proud and excited for this new chapter for Wilton. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and just want to shout out to all of our amazing teachers. I also want to give a special thank you to Karen Brennicke, who's been on the front lines of this large shift in our EL curriculum change. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Moses Alexander, 61 Riders Lane. I thought it was well explained, but I wanted to point out again that the reason we're having what I heard was described as the extraordinary growth in the grand list. Now, over the 30 years, some other times when the grand list was growing exponentially, extraordinarily. It did this year, like 4%, 3.6%. That spending increase is not hidden to our pocketbooks by the extraordinary growth in the grand list. And if there's another 4% growth in the grand list, we're going to have a 4% tax increase. So I think just looking to the future, that's something that the boards need to consider carefully. So there will be, some increases, and I think another speaker spoke about that, yes, there's some cost driven. Interested in knowing, and not tonight, how much of a cost, like for instance, we heard per pupil cost change, but the cost went up 4%. So it's not like there's a lot all here. It's just not going to be sustainable, 4% increases. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Mark Telford, 97 Washington Post. I really have a question just to help me understand a little bit. Obviously, there's a rise in multifamily units, apartments, rentals, etc. And I am not taking a position on that or trying to speak to that. I think I'm more interested in just understanding, since a large part of our budget is clearly taken up by services, and services are consumed by families, but some of those services are based on families and children. I would just like to appreciate if there's any way to think about what the tax revenue intake is like kind of on a per family unit basis when it's a multifamily apartment building versus a home. Just so that I can appreciate it, or how to think about it, even if that's understood a little bit, just so that I can kind of appreciate, you know, how we think about that going forward, and understand, is it, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. I see the taxes weighting apartment buildings, but it's sometimes hard to know that. Do we have a sense of that? Should I assume it's equivalency? I just love context. That would be great.
I'm actually very glad you asked that question because I ask that question myself often. Apartment complexes, the individuals don't pay a property tax. They pay a car tax, however, but they don't pay a property tax. What will happen is, say for example, Road, or the one next to it, Tracy Lock, that will be an apartment building over 200 units. The difference the developer will pay, it's been estimated, say, for example, if they were paying $700,000 a year previously, and the person that owns too. What I do know, the singular most profitable for the town in property taxes in recouping is how many students if they're to the town tax, how much revenue have mentioned higher social services in school classrooms. And other, you know, traffic monitor question, and it's hotly debated all the time. I don't think there's a clear answer to that. You know, we all have our debated.
Thank you for the feedback, appreciate it. Who wishes to speak to the budget? Going once, going twice.
Kevin Zarnicki, 292 Olmsted Hill Road. I want to thank all the boards for their hard work, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Education, and all the volunteers behind the scene. I just want to make a quick statement. This year's budget. We in Wilton have moved here for many reasons. We live here and work here because of the great schools and the community growth we've experienced and maintain the safety of the residents, the employees, simple firefighters. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yep.
Just added. Our CFO just chimed in and said that we are currently 99.9% actual of budget. We're still, however, posting more revenues as through this third quarter of this year.
Seeing no one else, I will close the comment period as it relates to the budget. There have been no amendments to the budget as proposed in the original resolution, and therefore, just to restate the motion that has been put before the annual town meeting, it is a motion following the annual town meeting for the appropriation of a budget for expenditures amounting to $145,800,000 $835,795 for fiscal year 2026, and levy a tax of 24.4054 mils on the estimated net taxable grand list of October 1, 2024, that is payable 1/2 on July 1, 2025, and 1/2 on January 1, 2026, except for bills of $100 or less for personal property or real estate, which are payable in one installment, July 1, 2025. Taxes on automobiles shall be payable in one installment on July 1, 2025. So that concludes the comments on the budget itself. There will be voting after the meeting has been adjourned, but please stay for the rest of the meeting because we will now move on to bonding. First, I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the full bond appropriation and authorization resolutions. May I have that motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any debate? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. I now call on our first selectwoman, Tony Boucher, for remarks and motions to adopt the bonding resolutions.
It was suggested by one of our residents that maybe I needed to bring a little step stool here so you all can see me over the days. So last year, our town began to address the essential, let me pull this up here for you. So you have a PowerPoint to look at. Did I get it? Okay. Bruce, I guess not so good, right? That's good. Did you find it?
I can't see. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, see. No, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. It's fine. That's the one. No, it's not working. Oh, it is working. That's just not on my screen. Let's, okay, here we go. All right, you have seen this list already before. Last year, as I said, we just began to address the essential and long-delayed school and town building repairs and maintenance needs with a 15-year building improvement plan. The cost was so much that we had to spread it out. So every year we take a look at that list in order to accomplish our goal of bringing our buildings up to proper repair. Much of the infrastructure and equipment that must be replaced has reached the end of its useful life, with spare parts and many of them no longer available. This includes equipment our schools and town departments require in order to function. It's these items that comprise this year's bond list, which has been approved unanimously by the Board of Selectmen. It stands to reason that when repairs are delayed, the cost of addressing the problems become more expensive with time. But the debt service maturing off of Wilton's books, meaning debts and their interests have been fully paid, there should be no net increase to Wilton's taxpayers, who we currently pay annual debt service fees. And we're going to show you a chart that shows you the ability for the town to tackle this particular list year by year. So we have seen these the following items that you see before us that are under consideration by all of you. Okay, let's go to the first one. We're talking about road restoration. I'm old enough and have been around this town over 40 years, and I can tell you when the first road program was put into place, it was very expensive. Our roads were each other. Some of them were dirt roads. And so one enlightened first selectman put it before the town that we needed to do a comprehensive road program of fixing all the roads in our community. And then every year thereafter, we start with the oldest one and fix it, and then so on until all of them are in good repair. So every year we have, of our 127 miles of town-maintained roads, we pave 7 miles of that road. And it uses sophisticated software to evaluate the road surface conditions and score to achieve the efficient allocation of resources. This is also something that is needed every year. We have 13 snowplow routes, and the DPW owns 15 of these large dump trucks, plows, and sanders. And it maintains 2 backup vehicles to ensure adequate coverage during these snow emergencies, and they keep our kids getting to school safely and on time. The long-term capital plans calls for replacing 1 truck per year to ensure the fleet remains reliable and spread replacement costs evenly. So imagine, okay, so we have 15 trucks. That means they last us for 50 item is our Wilton High School Library roof replacement. Its warranty has expired, and skylights are leaking into the library. So the rooftop HVAC unit is now beyond its useful life. So the estimated cost you can see there is around $2 million. Our next item is replacing the cider mill chilled water unit. The current one was installed in 1998, obviously way past its useful life. Its warranty has been expired, and it's failing with frequent service calls, and repair costs are increasingly scarce. The price tag on that is $1.5 million, and you can see why these came up to the top of our priority list, because there were many, many items, and that's why we had to spread them out. But you can see that we tackled the most urgent ones first in cooperation with our schools and with our building department. The next item we have is Middlebrook School replacing the floor, ceiling tiles, and lighting to address the long-standing moisture damage problem. The carpets have delaminated, increasing the threat of mold growth, which is something we are very, very concerned about. The ceiling tiles are curling due to moisture problems, and replace lighting with energy-efficient LED units, because oftentimes when you make these other repairs, it's all one and the same. When you're looking at the ceilings, you have your lights embedded in there. Now the cost for this, interestingly enough, is $1.6 million, with us going to borrowing the cost at just part of it, $66,000, and in 2027, the rest of it, which is nearly $1 million. What that'll show is in our bonding and our debt calculations, there's a bump up in 2027 and a reduction in this year. However, we have a way to solve that problem, something called a bond premium that we've earned that we can use to put against it to again level off our bonding costs. The next item that is on your list is for Wilton Public Schools drainage, sidewalk repairs, and paving. There's an area between Comstock. If you've ever been behind Comstock, it goes right into Cider Mill, it slopes down. The drainage system can't absorb heavy rainfalls. So sidewalks and stairs and paving have been damaged by this water, and the water ponds and causes icing in colder weather. So we have that phenomenon, as you can see from the picture there, that needs to be solved. The next item is one that has gotten quite a bit of discussion during this year. It is the Raymond Ambler House. There's a little history here that deserves to be discussed. This particular item, Ambler Farm, which many of you know, is a significant town asset, and it's a favorite destination which has grown in value and popularity for everyone, not just the residents, but businesses in our entire region. We have an obligation. When this was purchased in 1999, at an annual town meeting on May 4th, where there was a resolution to purchase several properties to the tune of nearly $8 million, including Ambler Farm, which went for 2.6, not 2.5 that's on there, but it's really 2.6. Interesting enough, people in an audience much as yours voted in favor. 2,278 said yes, and only 260 said no. It was a 10-to-1 environment by setting aside Wilton land for open space, conservation, recreation. That so-called rural character of the town was disappearing. It was the mood of the townspeople at that time to want to preserve it. And in doing so, the deed that was signed off on by the town to the Ambler family required that those buildings be preserved by the town in their current condition back in 1999 and brought up to satisfactory code for uses as foresaid. The phrase is uses as foresaid refers specifically to garden plots, pastures, husband and rural landscaping, rural arts, crafts, environmental education, historic education, or museum and quasi-museum purposes, and administrative offices. And according to our attorneys and the Ambler Trust that sold it to the town has an affirmative obligation under the deed to maintain, repair, and renovate the Ambler Raymond House, the white barn on our agenda. It is not usable at this time, but the town has been required to keep it in working order. The Raymond Ambler House is a very important component of the Ambler Farm programming goals that they have, and it provides much needed office space for their staff, which right now is inside of a utility closet in one of the barns. It also, by repairing it, will provide 24-hour presence and supervision of the entire farm. This farm is now operating 65 days a year from dawn to dusk. It has 350 volunteers, educational programs for all ages, has 25,000 visitors annually, and its visitation has increased over 60% in the past 5 years. Over 1,100 summer campers, who are 95% from Connecticut, participate there. And since its inception, this group, which by the way, the town would have to provide these programming services if they weren't there to do it, and it would be a part of our Parks and Recreation for $10 million in operating costs to deliver this very, very valuable community resource. They also have covered a number of exterior painting, roofing needs for both the red barn, the carriage barn, and gutters and so forth. So they have been very involved in also helping with the upkeep, even though the deed doesn't require it so. And I went back to see what previous bond items were for Ambler Farm, and noticed that both in 2012 and 2014, those bond items passed by nearly 60% of the vote of the town. So this is not just an important facility for programming and a camper. That this month, I hope you noticed, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And the programs at Ambler Farm have been known and shown to be an antidote for reducing stress on students as well as adults and our corporate citizens. It is a wonderful amenity for our town. And when I say corporate citizens, I have to show you this, okay? This is, I'm gonna get to it in a second because I'm gonna talk about the relationship we have with our corporate partners. The reason now, on this slide, the reasons for the urgent need for additional indoor space is that the farm has reached its capacity due to a lack of indoor temperature-controlled space. All they have is this one barn. Ceases in the wintertime. And inclement weather significantly impacts the revenue generation to keep those programming going, particularly for summer camp, which comprises 75% of program revenue. So in other words, when they can't go indoors and have a cover, they can't continue with their programming. So this particular renovation on this particular Raymond Ambler House would do a great deal to help improve our programming there and our needs. So again, it would help us to expand programming, increasing revenue and stability for the continuation of the programs, and it would enhance more of our community offerings, because in fact, people do say that what does Wilton have in the way of amenities? We can talk about, Merwin Meadows, we can talk about our library, we can talk about the teen center, and some of the other areas. We have a wonderful Now, it is an important destination amenity, as we just said, but what is very significant here, to just show you how important it's become in our community, it's supported by Wilton's largest taxpayer and employer that we've been talking about previously, over 3,000 employees. And it is a key component and partner for ASML under their programming, international programming called Attractive Communities, Green Communities Focused area mentioned because ASML is headquartered in the Netherlands and it is a world leader in semiconductor. Wilton, believe it or not, is home to Wilton had its roots in the beginning of the microchip industry. The great innovators Perkin and Elmer developed a projection lithography which revolutionized semiconductor manufacturing. ASML then took over Perkin Elmer from Silicon Valley that held it just for a very short period of time, and the world lithography market, which they continue to dominate. In 2024, Ambler Farm was awarded $324,000 for a 3-year grant from ASML to rebuild their educational gardens, animal habitats, outdoor classroom space, and many students in our cities in Norwalk that were never exposed to farming at all. And to date, 260 ASML employees have volunteered 2,100 hours of time in support of Ambler Farm. As I said, it's mentioned in a lot of their newsletters and in a 2-minute video highlighting ASML society and community engagement efforts in the region. And we all know when we go to a library event, a wine event, any event in town, ASML's name is proudly listed as one of the biggest sponsorships. In fact, they've donated over $10,000 to Ambler Farm, their employees in a matching grant program. And so, again, they provide 100% match to these individual donors. To date, over 500 ASML employees and their families have attended events there, such as Ambler Farm Day, and so on. So, they sent me recently a wonderful PowerPoint, ASML, because I try to meet with them regularly. Because when the governor of Connecticut calls me up and says, so how is Wilton doing? You know, you had a flood. I said, we're getting along. He says, but more importantly, how is ASML? I see him at the UConn basketball game. The governor comes over to me and says, how is ASML doing, Tony? Because it is not only a state priority, it is a national priority for this country. You can see here how ASML in its 50-year history has progressed and chronicles in a lot of their publications how it evolved for ASML in the last 20 years to be to have one of their, the largest R&D and manufacturing facilities in the United States. In their PowerPoint to me, they talk about how they have invested in Wilton. And you can see right there that ASML has heavily invested in Wilton and in their business growth in Wilton. And meeting with them recently, they said that they were going to continue to grow in Wilton. And by the way, that was a significant factor in our Moody's call yesterday when they asked us about ASML. They said, what did you do to attract them? Did you give them a big tax break, Tony? Did you reduce their property taxes on their machinery? I said, nope, not a thing. And they were incredulous. And I also was able to tell them we just had a meeting and they plan to continue that growth and investment in Wilton. And here we are. This is all of the participation that ASML has directly with Ambler Farm. The events, the hours of volunteer time, their participation, and the investment in our community. We are very lucky to have them in Wilton. We'll go on to a less controversial, in some view, of the next item on our bond list, which is Middlebrook School exhaust fan replacement. Here, this particular exhaust fan originated in 1997. It sounds familiar, doesn't it? A lot of these items were in the late 90s that now have aged out beyond their useful lives. They routinely break down, they have frequent service calls and higher service costs. That estimated cost is $373,000. We have the Middlebrook School Gym HVAC, and you can see that Their current ventilation is adequate, and this is also seen as a very high priority for the schools. And the estimated cost of that is $250,000. You'll see that $250,000 is kind of where we need to get to be able to bond it rather than pay for it directly. And so it's important for us to make sure that these items, and that's a wilted, set of standards, that they are at least $250,000 or more. And then number 10 is the turf replacement at Fujitani Fields. Now, the original cost would have been $1 million, but there were available funds to be had of $300,000. So now the bond cost is shown at $700,000. This next graph shows you exactly why we can actually proceed with bonding for these essential items without increasing the taxes to the public. We have this room, as you can see, as the blue starts to go down, we're paying off our old debt. And when you see in 2027, that is because some of the items were moved over to the next year. Also, I would like for you to note that we did receive our $1.2 million a couple of months ago from the state of Connecticut for our Miller Driscoll police, for our state for reimbursement when we built the school of Miller Driscoll. This $1.2 million reimbursement now, we were told we can use to reduce the cost of the police station from $6 million down to $5 million. So that helps us to increase our bonding capacity for other items coming up. This next chart is important for you to see because, as you can see, the actual change in our debt service, even with all of these projects and what we normally have as debt service, are in the negative, meaning we're reducing our debt service. The fact that in 2026 we see 2027, we see a bump up of $600,000. That is where our bond premium kicks in. In other words, we have that as a credit we can use against that to level that off to being maybe $8,000 only, and maybe an additional debt service on that. But all in all, you can see we're in very good shape. We have all that red that we can continue to borrow from our projects without increasing any taxes to the public. In the following charts, it just gives you some of the guidelines we have used as a policy for our bonded capital projects. Again, reserving all of our bonding and borrowing for long-term capital construction, like the purchase of real estate or high-valued items like fire trucks, DPW ply, and also aggregating other items to where we reach a $250,000 project, and the lifespan is beyond 10 years. As I said, when we have smaller capital bonds, if we can combine them, it reaches our threshold. One caveat is bonding cannot be used to cover normal operating expenses. So any basic repairs are considered operational expenses and not eligible for bonding. So how do we cover the costs? Well, the Board of Selectmen has created a new ad hoc building committee to prioritize the needs and repairs, to really scrutinize what we really need each year. And the town currently makes bond payments anywhere from 9 to as much as 11 million per year. And as older bonds mature and are paid off, our new debt can be added without increasing the total annual debt service budget line. The committee will sequence as it goes through this process, and it's a multi-year process, as you can see, new projects to coincide with the payoff of older bonds, thereby keeping the overall debt load constant to prevent a tax increase associated with bonding. I think that's the thought I want to leave you with tonight as you consider the bonding projects in front of you. Now, you see 10, and last year we had 8, but guess what? By moving, some of this borrowing into 2027, we're actually $1 million less. So we have more items, but they're at a lower cost than what we had last year. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. Oh, okay. All right. I have to continue with this process. Hang on here just a second. Well, we're not done quite yet. The next order of business is that I'm going to be reading all the bond resolutions. Okay, and I'm going to be making a motion, and then we're going to have a second if it's out there, and then you will not vote yes or no. You will not. We will then, after this is done and all the comments are made, and you'll have an opportunity to weigh in on any one of these, we then will recess to an actual vote. So there was no vote taken here on any of these bonds. It will be on your ballot. But we do at least have to move a resolution for each of them and get a second. So I'm going to start with the first one, and I am going to move the resolution appropriating $2 million for the planning, design, construction, and installation of the high school library roof replacement and authorizing the issuance of $2 million bonds of the town to meet said appropriation. Do I have a second for that first item? Second is heard. I'm now going to move on to the number 2. I move the resolution appropriating $1,646,314 for the planning, design, and construction of improvements to Middlebrook School, including floors, ceilings, and lighting replacements, and authorizing the issuance of $1,642,314 bonds of the town to said appropriations. Do we have a second for this item? Second. Yep. Okay, good. Want to make sure we're following it properly. Okay, number 3. I move the resolution appropriating $1,547,678 for the planning, design, acquisition, and installation of the Cider Mills School water chiller replacement and authorizing the issuance of $1,547,678 of bonds of the town to meet said appropriations. Do we have a second? Second. Great. Moving right along. I move the resolution appropriating $1,286,618 for the planning, design, equipping, and construction of the historic Raymond Ambler House at Ambler Farm renovations and authorizing the issuance of $1,286,618 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation. Is there a second? Okay. We're on a roll here, everyone. Okay, number 5. I move the resolution appropriating $725,000 for the planning, design, replacement, repair, and repaving of school district drainage. Remember the drainage, sidewalks, and parking area, and authorizing the issuance of $725,000 in bonds of the town to meet said appropriation. Second. Moving right along. I move the resolution appropriating $700,000 for the planning, design, and road restoration and authorizing issuance of $700,000 of bonds of the town to meet said appropriation. I need a second. Got a second. Okay, we're almost there. I move the resolution appropriating $700,000 for the planning, design, acquisition, and installation of a turf field replacement at Memorial Stadium and authorizing the issuance of $700,000 of bonds of the town to meet said appropriation. There is a second. Good, we have a second. Number 8. I move the resolution appropriating $375,000 for the planning, design, acquisition, and installation of the Middlebrook School exhaust fan replacement and authorizing the issuance of $375,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation. Is there a second? Okay. Number 9, I move the resolution appropriating $330,000 for the acquisition and equipping of a large dump truck and 2 sanders and 2 plow apparatus and authorizing the issuance of $330,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation. Is there a second? We have a very strong seconder there. This is great. Okay, and last but not least, number 10. I move the resolution appropriating $250,000 for the planning, design, acquisition, and installation of the Middlebrook School Gymnasium HVAC system, replacement, and authorizing the issuance of $250,000 bonds of the town to meet said appropriation. Is there a second? Okay, so we have completed this, and I think our moderator is going to take over the meeting at this point. That cursor. Is that why they call it a cursor? I'm trying to get the cursor. It's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult. Oh, thank you.
All right. Just in case anybody is overly observant, the order of the various bonding resolutions in the presentation is different than what you will see the order on the ballot. So just be aware that, I was going to vote yes for number 3. Number 3 may be different from what you think it is. So just, you'll have to read every one, but be careful. With that, we'll open up the comment period on the bonding resolutions. A couple of reminders. One is on timing, that you are permitted 3 minutes to speak on any one resolution. If you wish to speak to more than one resolution, you're entitled to a total of 6 minutes, but only 3 on any one within that 6-minute period. Similarly, a reminder to clearly state your name and street address to the record. And lastly, a reminder that according to the town charter, bonding resolutions cannot be amended at the town meeting. There will be a vote after the town meeting, but it is for or against, not any change to what has been proposed. So with that, I will open up the microphones for the comment period. If anybody wishes to speak, please come down to the microphones and I will recognize you. Yes.
Deborah McFadden, 109 Westport Road. I rise to support the bonding for Ambler Farm. I was living in Wilton when we voted in '99 to acquire the property. We have been a poor partner in a public-private partnership, which I mentioned earlier in my remarks. This is an example of where Wilton needs to step up to its obligations. We made a commitment as a town back in '99, and it's about time we honored it. So I fully support this, and I know we're only supposed to speak to one other bonding item, but I support all of the bonding items, and I encourage everybody else to as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. David. Rob Sanders at 172 Range Road. I wanted to state my support for all of the bonding issues, but in one particular one about Ambler Farm. In these fractious times, we were all seeking community, where we can come together in body and spirit and find common ground. A fundamental characteristic of community and common ground is context. In Wilton, that context occurs at Ambler Farm. Ambler Farm is really the essence of Wilton. As a historic landmark, it reminds us of the origins of our community as both a tangible illustration of our rural heritage and architectural character we point towards as proud New Englanders. It embodies our present as an ex-urban community focused on the value of family activities, which at Ambler include educational and social events, and even a playing field. And finally, it is a place where we plant the seeds of our future, learning to take better care of our environment, raising wholesome foods, and fostering opportunities for future leaders of our community. As an architect practicing historic residential architecture for 4 decades, I understand the challenges and rewards of repurposing antique structures. I have toured the Ambler House several times and have observed its condition and repairs made to date. I've reviewed the architectural plans and can attest that it meets the program needs of the Friends, as well as the requirements of life safety codes required for public use. They notably are not overly embellish, but retain enough of the historic elements which make these structures distinctive landmarks. I'm familiar with the professionals involved and know that the team can deliver the project responsibly. I've read the lease. The longer the building sits in its unfinished state, the more deterioration it will suffer. Further delay will only increase the expense required for its restoration and as per the terms of sale when it was acquired by the town. Wilton has often squandered its assets. While we have focused our resources on our educational system, we have no glamorous facilities such as municipal hockey rinks, beaches, or country clubs. Ambler is our unique asset, the hook that attracts visitors and new residents as a statement of our community values, a place where we gather in small groups, and where community events of which we are proud. I urge Wilton to support the initiative to preserve and enhance the structures
20 seconds.
that the town committed to 25 years ago. A positive vote on tonight's bond issue will represent an affirmative mandate to the Board of Selectmen to complete execution of the lease in front of them and put us on a path for making Ambler Farm the context at the heart and soul of our community. Thank you.
Bravo, Rob.
Thank you. Yes.
Melissa Spone from 66 Spoonwood Road. I support all of the bonding items as presented tonight. I appreciate the TSNAP committee's work on prioritizing the $140 million in necessary capital projects. However, the current funding puts $10 million pinky-sized Band-Aid on a growing wound. It is indeed a modest response that risks greater costs in the future. Infrastructure and maintenance needs rarely improve with time. They typically compound. The annual BOF survey, the one that's issued in February online, is like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. The options are, is the budget too low, too high, or just right? Wouldn't a better approach be to develop a ranked choice voting survey for capital projects the fall before the budget process starts? This approach would give residents more agency in prioritizing projects, allow for more nuanced feedback beyond too high, too low, just right, create space for residents to indicate their willingness to pay more for specific priorities, help the TSNAP committee better understand community values, not just budget tolerance. This could transform budget discussions from binary choices into more meaningful community conversations about priorities and long-term fiscal responsibility. True fiduciary responsibility means considering the town's long-term financial health, not just minimizing the immediate tax burden.
Thank you.
Moses Alexander, 61 Riders Lane. Similar to what the last speaker just spoke about, we saw a lovely graph about declining debt service, but I thought the number was 250 million was being thrown around at one point of ranking projects. And it'd be interesting to see if we threw that in, what would be happening to our debt service. I support all the bonding projects. I question the need to bond roads. The history, as I remember it, is that we were doing roads every 10 or 15 years, depending on, I guess, what kind of road it is. And then things got a little tight, and we stopped. And there was a massive, and we were fixing them out of the annual capital budget. And when things got tight, and there's perception and what's in the selectmen's budget, et cetera, we stopped, kept the taxes low. And then all of a sudden, some years passed, and the roads were horrible. And at that point, we upped the amount, and we had to do a big catch-up. And I would suggest now that we're caught up, that there should be $1 million in the, or maybe it's 700,000 in the annual capital budget, and that year after year costs, there's no point in my simple mind of bonding them, because you're just adding more cost to what you're doing. Likewise, if we're buying a dump truck every 15 years, that should be in the annual capital budget. And from my following this year, I think it was. And it was moved to the bonding budget. That's my recollection of following what was going on. And so there's a perception that we're keeping down the selectmen's budget, the capital part, but the reality is we're just shifting it and perhaps incurring more costs. Lastly, I have a question. I thought it was glaring that the Board of Finance, and I support Ambler Farm and all the other bonding, but there was a recommendation and a vote on all the other items, and I was wondering why the Board of Finance didn't even take up the issue of Ambler Farm. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'd like to hear an answer.
You will.
Hi, I'm Matt Romani. I'm the chairman of the Board of Finance. So the question was, why did the Board of Finance not take a vote to recommend or endorse the Ambler Farm bonding referendum? Taking a step back, as part of our charter, the Board of Selectmen votes to send bonding referendums to the town. Only the Board of Selectmen has that power. However, the charter also says the Board of Selectmen needs to present that to the Board of Finance, and we have a choice on whether or not to endorse or recommend it. The Board of Finance opted not to provide and endorse their recommendation. As chairman of the board, and someone that's speaking for the board, everyone has their own individual reasons why, and we did not vote on why we should or should not do it. I would recommend if people are interested, you could watch our meeting. It was on April 8th, and I believe the discussion pertaining to Ambler Farm was the first probably 30 or 40 minutes of that meeting, and you can watch that to see the discussion. Thank you.
Yes.
Jeff Rudishauser, 8 Maplewood. I'm here to talk about the Ambler Farm like everyone else seems to be. I live about 2 blocks from this and I drive by it every day. It's a Victorian style house. It's got significant deferred maintenance and it's dark, so you drive by it, it looks like a haunted house. And I'm not sure that's what we want on Hurlbut Street. But more importantly, I walked the property today and I noticed a lot of the wall boards are starting to deteriorate. They're deteriorating to the point where they might need to be replaced, and it's a lot cheaper to peel and paint wallboard than to siding, exterior siding, than to replace it. We are at that point, so if we do not do something now, these costs, these deferred maintenance costs will be deferred further and go up, as Rob said, exponentially. They do not fix themselves. So it becomes to us, if we're going to preserve this at a reasonable cost, we should think about doing it this year. Sorry about that. Not at a higher amount in a future board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking?
It's just Paul Burnham on 239 Thunder Lake Road. Years and years ago, I sat at the equivalent of the stage as a member of the Board of Finance. I remember at that time we did not even think about bonding dump trucks. Of course, the numbers were smaller then. Dump truck didn't cost as much. But since I was on the Board of Finance, and I never remember a proposal to bond dump trucks previously. Am I right, or am I just getting old and forgetful that this is the first year that we have attempted to bond dump trucks? That's my question. And by the way, I will support dump trucks, but not every single year like the first selectman was suggesting.
As was stated earlier, we had a very, very difficult budget year, and our operating capital was reduced severely. We looked to see and were asked to look at what items could be bonded that have a very long, useful life, over 10 years. And our dump trucks have been lasting 15 years, much, much longer. In fact, some 20 years. So that was a logical, because we did not want to put it off. The decision was, do you put it off winter season, but it fit all the criteria of being over $250,000 and having a very long, past 10, if not 20, 25-year life.
I understand for Selectwoman, but my question was, this is the first year we have bonded dump trucks, and I gather from what you were saying that it is.
Yes.
Hey, my name is Kaz Nobumoto. I live at 43 Briar Place. And I went through the Wilton High School public school system, and that was amazing, and then I left. I went to college. I was no longer a Wilton resident. But then I decided I should come back, and I started working with Ambler Farm. And so I am proud to say that I am a Wilton resident because Ambler Farm is in Wilton. And Ambler Farm is such an amazing place, and it's very hard to match the impact that Ambler Farm has had on not only Wilton, but also the county. It is a place where Wilton students develop soft skills that better prepare them and grant them further success in their academic career. It is a place where families and individuals can connect without having to socially camouflage or put on that mask, if you will. And it is a place that has a fan base or a support system composed of community members and program alumni that extends both nationally and internationally. So I'm proud to say that Ambler Farm is not only a home, but a place in my heart. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Patty Temple, Drum Hill Road. I'm also president of the board of Friends of Ambler Farm. It's a privilege and a pleasure for me to be able to say that. I want to make a couple of clarifications, and then I will speak specifically about the Raymond Ambler House. As Tony mentioned, the Friends of Ambler Farm is an integral part of Ambler Farm. It is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that does the work. Runs all of the day-to-day operations, the agriculture, the programs, the events, and the administration, everything that is connected to the farm. I appreciated an item you had in one of your last slides where you defined the word operational, and you referred to repairs, because for the coming year, the $44,000 line item in the Board of Selectmen budget does cover just care for the buildings and properties and property. Everything else Friends of Ambler Farm takes care of. And as Tony also mentioned, in the past 20 years, that has totaled slightly over $10 million. In the past 26 years, the town has spent a total of just under $2 million on renovating the two barns and the work that has been done to date on the Raymond Ambler House. We meaning Friends of Ambler Farm, we can't tell you exactly what the programming will be when the house is open. And let me back up just a moment. Since the deed does require that the town take care of the house and make it available for public use, if it doesn't pass this year, it will come back again sometime, and it will only be more expensive. But while we can't tell you exactly what the new programming will be, I can tell you that the design has been made to be very practical and very flexible. We look forward to especially enhancing and adding adult programming, which we were able to do very little of at this point in time because of the lack of indoor space, as Tony also described. I have no doubt that whatever comes forward after the house is usable will be a absolute success based on Friends of Ambler Farm track record. I'm just going to give you only 3 examples, and there are many. In 2000, the fields were overgrown and filled with the debris. The soil was eventually amended and cultivated. And in 2025, there are now 3.5 fertile acres, dozens of varieties of vegetables, fruit, herbs, and flowers. The gardens yield as much as 15,000 pounds of produce a year, and you can find that in the between June and October.
20 seconds.
Farm stand and the weekly farmers market. So
I will just close by saying, Raymond Ambler House is your house. I look forward to it passing and helping make it usable for all of us. And I'd like to take up a couple of minutes for another topic. Sure. All right. I also am in favor of all of the bonding projects that have been offered. I want to speak specifically to the turf field. It has a unique distinction of being on the capital projects list before it has outrun its useful life, while it is not in bad disrepair, and while it is not unsafe. And I urge the town to try to get more of our capital projects in that same position so that we can take care of needed repairs and renovations sooner rather than later before they become really severe and more expensive.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi again, I'm Mark Tom for 97 Washington Post. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Ambler Farm is open for everybody to visit. Asset, which is awesome. If that's the case, I'm wondering, as an important asset for the community, perhaps we should treat it that way. We don't need beaches. We do have some places like Long Meadows. Maybe as we continue to grow, maybe it's the kind of thing that we ought to keep for the residents and perhaps make it a fee for non-residents to visit when they want to have their novelty experience in the fall or other times. And if so, maybe that would help to offset some of the costs going forward. Maybe it's a novelty, maybe it's a small amount, but it's interesting since we don't have some of those assets. We have a few. Perhaps it's worth considering as a way to kind of make sure that as we grow, it continues to be a unique thing for Wilton.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Lori Fields. I live at 95 Pond Road. I support the Celtics winning the NBA championship. So I had the opportunity last night to speak at the Board of Selectmen hearing. Coincidentally, last night, my daughter, who's in 6th grade, also had her chorus concert. She's trying on all these different outfits. She's asking what I think. She's seeking my approval. She's very excited to go. And when she came home from school yesterday, I shared with her that there was an important meeting where I had the chance to speak out to support Ambler Farm. Trying to gauge her disappointment, I said to her, the farm needs us. And without hesitation, she said, Mom, you have to go. I'm also the director here at Trackside Teen Center, and in thinking about coming here tonight, I thought about which hat to wear. Do I wear my executive director Trackside hat, or do I wear my Wilton family who loves and supports the farm? I decided that both perspectives were important. I support the bond for Ambler Farm. This next phase of work is critically important to the growth and the well-being of the farm and our community at large. It's us fulfilling a commitment to our town for our town. I have 3 kids. They're in 6th grade, 8th grade, and 10th grade. All of them have spent a great amount of time at Ambler Farm. My 6th grader, Ashley, has done summer camp, junior apprentice, early apprentice, and now the apprentice program. For the past 2 years, she's been by my side, proudly helping me out at Trackside, and now I have lost her to the farm. But I'm still here to support the farm. My oldest daughter in 10th grade has done summer camp, apprentice, junior camp counselor, and now this summer Ambler will be her first place of employment as a counselor. Ambler Farm is where my kids bring my dad when he comes to visit us from out of town. They can't wait to show him the bunnies and hold the baby chicks, and they share with pride all the ways that they have contributed to the care of the animals, to the land, and to the organization at large. Ambler Day is where our family goes every year to make our annual scarecrow. It's where my son dunked Heather Hervey in the dunk tank. I'm sorry, Heather, but he felt so proud. It's
20 seconds.
It's the place where 3 days a week I pull up and see so many of the same kids who come to Trackside. It reminds me how closely we are all connected, how the work we do is so similar, how kids feel the same way at Ambler as they do at Trackside, happy and at peace with themselves, It is something you cannot put a price on. I really want to finish. These are not small things, and they are not unique to my family. Ambler is a place of meaning and belonging for so many of us. Supporting it is totally aligned with what this town stands for. I promise I will be so fast. Can I? Okay. Running a nonprofit is no easy task. It requires wearing many hats and playing many roles, utilizing a wide range of skills. The responsibilities go way beyond the 9 to 5. This is a 24/7 labor of love. It's like being a mom. There's a huge amount of invisible labor that no one can possibly appreciate or understand until you are in the role yourself. Finding a group of people with the talent, capacity, bandwidth, desire, and work ethic is no easy thing. These people at Ambler Farm, they are unicorn caretakers. They are steadfast stewards of the well-being of the land and of the Ambler Farm legacy. We are so lucky, as Tony pointed out, we are so lucky to have them in town. What Ambler offers this town is far-reaching and significant. A candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. In fact, it creates even more light for all of us. When any one of us is strengthened, so are we all. It is time for us to take care of our farm. Woo!
Yes.
Hi, my name is Cameron Zarnicki, and I'm live on Olmsted Hill Road. Hello. Pardon my fluency. Oh, I do have a stutter.
It's okay. It's okay. Take your time.
Thank you all for your work on this year's budget. I am here to encourage you, the residents of Wilton, to vote yes, to approve the embodying referendum to finish the necessary work on the Raymond Ambler House at Ambler Farm. My experience on the farm has been nothing but positive and extremely rewarding. I've been a volunteer for over 7 years, have gained leadership skills through being a project leader and mentor, and enjoy seeing what all of our work does brings to the public. The skills of staff and farm have taught me and my peers will follow us into our adult lives. While witnessing the excitement our work brings to the numerous visitors who come by, it's truly a blessing. Renovated Raymond House will then provide space for educational workshops, regardless of age, social gatherings, and the ability for us all take in and enjoy a imperative piece of Wilton's history. The work that remains includes, but is not limited to plumbing, electrical, and other items. Amber Farm hasn't helped me gain the confidence to not only educate officers of the farm, but also the courage to come up here tonight and speak on behalf of the nonprofit or organization that has given me so much to me, my family, and my community. Thank you.
Kevin Zarnicki, 292 Olmsted Hill Road. This is not going to be nowhere near as good as Cameron's, so bear with me. I would like to echo my daughter's Cameron's comments regarding Ambler Farm and for the residents to continue to support such a resource to our community. Ambler Farm's directors, staff, and volunteers have created an environment that instills valuable characteristics in our children, provides them great role models and opportunities, and allows parents and adults to experience a true gem of Wilton. Personally, I hold 3 F's very close to me. That's family, the fire service, and the farm. Please vote yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Robin Reeves, 115 Chicken Street. Cameron, I'm so proud of you. I get a chance to be with Cameron at least 3 days a week, maybe even 7 days. And she's like a daughter to me, so I'm thrilled. Being a lifelong resident and active member of Wilton, I've had the privilege of watching this town grow and expand. For young families and to lifers, Wilton has unique resources within the town to gather and participate in activities. One of those places where it is a gem is Ambler Farm. There are opportunities of all ages to become involved. There are programs that reach children from the age of 18 months to seniors in high school that teach the respect and care of animals and the environment we live in. Children learn leadership and responsibilities that are skills that they will carry with them throughout their lives. Being a senior myself, which is really hard to admit now, I have a very similar aged community working with me at the farm stand. We share the, oh, sorry, Nicole, you're a lot younger. We share the love of the farm, a sense of purpose, and a terrific bond. We meet both at the farm and out of the farm environment as well. There are many programs and volunteers that, there are many programs and volunteer opportunities that are offered on the farm to reach all populations within the town and beyond. I feel with the addition of the Raymond Ambler House, there will be unlimited and endless opportunities to expand programming for the community and all ages. I strongly support the bonding of the house. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Kara Berghaus, and I live at, pardon my voice from teaching all week, I live at 20 Langner Lane in Wilton, Connecticut. And Robin, I can't believe I didn't know you lived on Chicken Street. So a long time ago, I'm a 16-year resident of Wilton. And when we were looking at houses when my kids were just 5 and 2 years old, my daughter was riding around in the car with us. And we had looked at a house on Chicken Street. And then we looked at a house on Langner Lane. And we looked at every house in between, all over Wilton. And I remember my daughter saying to us, she goes, Mom, why would I live on a house on Chicken Street that has no chickens when I can live around the block from Ambler Farm that has chickens? And so I said, you know what, you're absolutely right. And so the rest is kind of history. So not only did we move here for the wonderful schools, I just want to backtrack and say I do support all of the bonding, all the items up for bonding this year. But Ambler Farm has been a mainstay of our family and in our community. And from that young age, we knew we made the right decision. And my daughter started at the farm at just 5 years old, didn't know anybody here when we first moved here. And it was a place where she felt immediately connected. All of the things that everybody said was true, including the great leaders that come out of Ambler Farm, like Cameron, who is the recipient of one of our Raymond Ambler Awards this year. What a magnificent young lady she is. So when we moved here, you know, we fell in love with Ambler Farm for everything that it represented as a historic landmark for our community and for the incredible connection that it provided for our family to the history of our town, the opportunity to learn about the farm and animal life, and the ability to connect with nature and our neighbors within our community. My children have both grown up on the farm, have benefited from the experiences through the camps, apprentice programs, builders programs, and my daughter, it's the first place she wants to visit when she comes back from college in Virginia every year. And she went all the way through the mentor program and is now works at the farm in the summertime as a camp counselor. We've also enjoyed participating in the wonderful tradition of maple sugaring, which is really was elevated this year. We actually had our best season ever of maple syrup. Additionally, at the Wilton Public Schools, our students were able to be afforded the opportunity to partake in many historical and science-related field trips throughout their school years. The opportunity to connect learning in the classroom to the outdoors was an invaluable experiential part of the school-to-farm connection within the community. And these class trips were truly some of the highlights of their educational experiences here in Wilton.
20 seconds.
Oh gosh, okay, I'm gonna finish too. As a family, you know, we've loved participating in the sugaring program, volunteering at Ambler Farm Day. My son was a part of the Builders program, and during the pandemic, it was a lifeline for him. When they were on screens for 5 hours a day, it was a place for him to go, to let go, to connect with others, and to truly connect with nature. I now am working part-time as an educational program leader. And I just want to say that as someone who has a background as a mental health counselor, and I've worked with youth within our community, I can truly see how this farm elevates the experience and connection for our youth, everyone from 1-year-olds up into our seniors. We see it every day, we see the connections, and I just think that supporting this house will elevate a town treasure to the next level. The staff, the nonprofit, hats off to all the hours, countless hours that everyone's put in. And I'm just gonna end with saying that if you haven't noticed, I think it came up in one of our meetings at the Board of Selectmen, that our town crest on the actual letterhead for the town of Wilton is a picture of Ambler Farm. So I'll just leave you with that. And the fact that, one last thing, I think Kevin Meehan, our program director, said it very well, that one last comment is that Ambler Farm is the antidote to what ails us in our community. And I will say that that is absolutely true for anyone who's visited our farm. So please support Raymond Ambler House, support the gem. It's on our town crest. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, it's really late. I'm Cece Marr. I live at 47 Sturgis Ridge Road. I've been here for 37 years. Remember walking through the farm the day that everything came out of the house and was sold. And I was so excited about the idea that we now had this jewel in our town. One of the nice things about Ambler Farm is that people can dip in and dip out of it dependent upon what their needs are. During COVID, my husband and I walked with our dogs there. It gave us peace. It was really a remarkable place. I have volunteered on Farm Day. I have made brownies for the Mother's Day tea or Valentine's Day, I can't remember. But it is a place where everyone, not just children, although I love the children, and I love being there when they're there, and I love seeing them in the farm with the animals, but all of us at every single age can dip in and dip out as our time and our resources allow, and it is a remarkable jewel, and it absolutely, as I walk around, breaks my heart that we have not taken care of the 2 homes there, that we have not fulfilled our commitment to the farm, and that we as a town must. I know we have columns falling off the town hall. I know we have building issues. I know that there's not enough room in town hall. Thank God we're doing the police station. But I have to say, this is a jewel where so many people come from the surrounding communities, not just on the Farm Day, but throughout the year. I talk about it all the time to young families, telling them to come walk the grounds, see the animals, and get involved. So please, everybody vote for this, because it is so important that we protect our assets. We don't have a beach. We've got Merwin Meadows, but we don't have a beach. We don't have waterfront, but we have Ambler Farm, and we need to take care of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich Burgos, I'm 20 Langer Lane. I'm getting an extra 3 minutes. My wife was verbose in support. I think we've all heard an incredible emotional outpouring about how it's affected our kids as well as our individuals. But I work in corporate America, and I've listened to this Board of Selectmen committee meeting last night. And I'm going to put some more objective items out there about why this should be supported, not just for the Raymond Ambler building renovation, but also the lease. And we just heard 20 years, $2 million. I'm like, I don't know if any of us proportionally would be able to maintain our house for that perspective. If you did for 15 years, you do proportionally that cost, that's just pure neglect. The town committee, cross-section of the entire committee, you wanted to hear from the people, okay? Top 5 on the list of the building that needed to be supported, okay? You want to hear from the people, you're delaying, that's right there, okay? Town organizations use this building, not just the children, okay? They do it for, nonprofits use it for speakers, gatherings, meetings. It's another place to meet, okay? Beyond our library. You just said the library, $3.1 million allocation annually. This is a one-time ask right now to create a building, create more opportunity for people and adults. Think about the farm to fork part of the obligation. You know how many adults in this town would pay for those events? To do there? There was an issue of people making comments about having the kitchen. Okay, more revenue, more Friends of Ambler Farm can do with programming. Wrapping up, our largest taxpayer, okay, $5 million. Okay, thousands of employees, a lot of them old residents. Okay, gave $324,000 to expand programming of this farm. Okay, not just the children, to everyone, to the entire community. Okay, they need the building to do that stuff inside. Okay, we have a whole week of rain. All these volunteers are out there running classes. My wife is out there with children, age 1 through 5, on the farm. Okay, running programming. Okay, they have nowhere to go inside. That one building, if there's another meeting set up, they have nowhere to go. Please support, fulfill the obligation, but I have not heard a standing ovation like that in the 15 years living here. What that girl said. I think we've spoken loud enough. Do the lease 10, 20, 30, 60, 80 years. It is the foundation of this town. It's going to be here way before when we're all gone. Okay? Stop dragging our feet. Support
20
it,
seconds.
please.
Thank you. Yes.
Paul Hanna, 11 Shagbark Place in Wilton. I've been here 50 years, and I was on the Board of Finance in 1999 when Bob Russell presented a motion to spend $7,950,000 in essence to preserve our rural character. And that included $2.6 million to buy the Ambler property and another $500,000 to stabilize the buildings which were in bad shape. Hearing everybody tonight and how forethoughted Bob was, and I as chairman of the Board of Finance and later first selectman supported the things he did, and especially Ambler Farm. Hearing how well Ambler Farm is making everybody happy and hearing no opposition, I support the farm and would like, I don't suppose we can call the question, but I would like to encourage the moderator to encourage us to go and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna.
Yes, Stephen Jones, 200 Picklewog Road. I'm also the treasurer of the board for Ambler Farm. Ambler Farm is a special place to me. It's why I'm a board member. The programming, the agricultural work that's done there isn't like anything offered in this town or any town around us. My daughter went through the apprentice program all the way through high school. She gained leadership skills. She learned how to mentor younger children. She developed a deep understanding of the environment, a strong sense of community, and what it means to actually care for something that's much bigger than yourself. These are life lessons. We saw Cameron talk, we saw Kaz here. I mean, it's amazing. They aren't taught in classrooms. They're taught at Ambler Farm, on its land, through its programs. It's invaluable and non-replicated anywhere else in our community. And it's part of what makes Wilton not just a great place to live, but a place to grow. So speaking from personal experience and a kind of a selfish perspective, I'm an avid mountain biker. And I bike almost every day, rain, shine, mud, no matter what, snow or ice. I even went out today. But what I do is I start in Cannondale, I go through Allen's Meadow, Merwin's Meadow, I do the NRVT, and I end at Ambler Farm with the Great Red Barn. All these places are unique. They serve different missions, they operate under different operating models, and they have different financial arrangements. But one thing they do have in common, they make our town very special and unique. Together they form the heart of what makes this town so wonderful. These spaces are not just recreational, they're also part of Wilton's identity. They bring people here, they keep people here. This is why it's so important that we support this bonding, support these spaces, and these programs allow them to thrive. Because we invest in them, we're investing in our children, our community, and our future. So please support this bond for the Ambler Farm.
Thank you. Mr. Hanna has suggested a call to question, so I'm going to ask how many more people would like to speak, and we can hopefully wrap this up. If you want to speak, by all means. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Ashley Kenyon. I'm at 44 Bald Hill Road, and I'm also the executive director at Ambler Farm. It has been an honor to work with our staff, with the kids. I couldn't be prouder of Cameron for getting up here and speaking. It takes a lot of courage. And those are really those soft skills that, these kids learn, that people learn at Ambler Farm. Ambler Farm is really, it's about connection, and it's not just about connection with the kids. We see it every day from our farm stand volunteers who've been with us for, dozens of years, dozen plus years, I should say, to our kids. It's truly an important amenity, and it's one of our very few amenities. In fact, it's not just one amenity, it is a multi-faceted amenity. It is open space. It is a summer camp to over 1,100 summer campers. It is community gardens. It is a place for educational field trips to take place. It is a place to just walk the farm, connect with your friends, connect with your family, maybe get away from your family, but really just to enjoy that open space. And in this time where we're so connected to our electronics, it's just wonderful to take that time and clear your head. In terms of the Raymond Ambler House and the use plan, our plans, we do have plans. It is, our focus is on educational programs. It's on, because we are a farm and we do have our sustainable gardens. We would love to tie everything in. Our mission derives directly from the deed. There are 3 pillars of our mission. There's educational programming, there's historic preservation, and all of that is tied into that use plan. So imagine a farm-to-table experience where you go out and you harvest garlic scapes, and you come back and you sit down and you create and you make this meal together, and it's a shared culinary experience. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about fun evening activities. We're talking about, and these are small activities. It's a small house, relatively speaking, in terms of the room size. But that back section of the Raymond Ambler House really does give us quite a bit of options. And the other idea is that we can use that space for indoor space during inclement weather, during summer camp, during for our field trips. It will further enrich our field trips.
20 seconds.
Thank you. By tying in that historical preservation aspect. I urge you to exercise your right to vote, and I thank everyone for your time.
Thank you. One more. Yes.
The microphone's, yeah.
140 Cheese Spring Road. Yeah, I'm a firm supporter of all these bond issues, especially Ambler Farms. But I do have a kind of a question on the dump trucks and roads. So if my simple understanding is that are we going to have a separate bond issue for the next 15 years for dump trucks? In my mind, that says after 15 years, we're buying a new truck plus paying for the interest. Can somebody just explain the advantages of bonding the trucks? Thank you.
The road program has been bonded for a number of years. Now, as far as the question on the dump truck, we're in the process of convening a subcommittee to look at creating a non-lapsing infrastructure fund that we can seed with funds. Hopefully we will be able to put some funds in there this year because of the extraordinary increase in our grant list, so that in the future we will have this fund that we can actually pay outright for an item like that rather than bonding it. But since it does satisfy the bonding requirements, it was critical that we don't use that year to buy that and delay it one more, because we have another one coming behind it that is almost out of its useful life. And we need to keep the roads safe for our school buses and our residents.
So are we bonding it because we don't have the money to buy it outright?
That's correct. Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the comment period on the bonding. Just a reminder that voting will occur on this as part of the adjourned town meeting. Before we adjourn, just a reminder on how you can vote. You can vote here this evening in the lobby. You can vote here in the lobby on Saturday, May 10th, this coming Saturday, between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Note that most elections are from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is the opposite. It's shorter on both ends. So 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. You must be in the lobby by 6 p.m. in order to vote. You may also apply for an absentee ballot in person at the town clerk's office during the town clerk's business hours on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of this week, and you can fill in and submit your ballot on the spot if you do. You can also obtain that ballot from the town clerk's office, and it can either be dropped off at the absentee ballot box at the back of town hall, not later than 6 o'clock p.m. on Saturday, or it can be returned by mail or other delivery service, but it must be actually received by the town clerk's office not later than 6 o'clock p.m. on Saturday. So postmarking it by that time is not sufficient. It must be actually physically received. So tonight in the lobby, Saturday in the lobby, or by absentee ballot, and you can then drop it off at the town clerk's office or in the absentee ballot box or mail it in. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the annual town meeting to vote.
So moved.
Is there a second?